The point of fear and consolidation of power is often communism. A fascinating clip from the Jubilee debates put out by the media company Surrounded featured this time friend of Will Cain Country, Patrick Bet-David. Patrick Bet-David, surrounded by a group of anti-capitalists and communists, had a debate about the virtues of different types of society building when he encountered someone who said that communism, openly, is the better way to organize society. Here's Patrick Bet-David.
I like to be free, but that's why I'm anti-capitalist.
Well, maybe you ought to move to North Korea or Cuba or
capitalism removes that choice. There is no real incentive of capitalism because the incentive is survival. When you get into communism, the incentive is for the common good.
I love that. I got an offer for you before we move on. If I were to give you your $2,350, which is the cost to renunciate your citizenship, and I paid you your first class, flight to whatever communist country, and $20,000 to spend the money,
communist country.
Would you give up your citizenship to go to that country? Whichever communist country you want to go to.
Yeah,
Cuba, we can give you Venezuela, we give you North Korea, any one of those you want to go to. Choose any one of them, I'll give you a one-way ticket, and I'll fund it for you if you want to.
That young lady did not accept her one-way ticket, first class, and $2,300 to renounce her citizenship to the United States for any of the countries mentioned. Not Venezuela, not Cuba, not North Korea. What I found fascinating was her rejection that any of those are true experiments in communism. This is what we always have heard. Communism and socialism are these utopias that have never quite existed in the perfect experiment, never quite implemented to perfection. And that's what the New York Times is saying today about Zohran Mamdani. What to know about Zohran Mamdani and Democrat socialism? The subhead reads, opponents of the Democrat nominee for mayor of New York City have derogatively called him both a socialist and a democratic socialist to make a dent in his lead in the polls. They go on to write not just about Donald Trump, but Andrew Cuomo and Mayor Eric Adams, talking about the fact that Zohran Mamdani is a member of the Democrat Socialists of America. But he's not actually a socialist, writes the New York Times. He is a Democrat socialist, which means his beliefs are similar to those of socialists, but not exactly the same. Admitting he's a member of the Democrat Socialists of America, his policies, they suggest, are actually just about equity. But they're not, really, as we've ever seen play out. A seizure of the means of production by the public, so therefore not socialist. This is the ever elusive target that the utopians constantly place out there. Well, we've never seen it implemented perfectly. Look, the way that human beings work is that we are not all equal. We like to organize a society with the belief that we will have equal opportunity. But we're not equal. We are varied height, varied eye color, varied intellect, varied ability. That's the facts. And societies stratify based upon one's ability. How that stratification takes place is the great debate. In capitalism, the idea is the stratification will happen by merit. You will be able to achieve, with equal opportunity and free from government interference, what you are capable of achieving. There is no promise of an equal outcome. There is no utopia. And it won't always be fair. Capitalism, by the way, and even a constitutional republic, much less a democracy, are not the perfect forms of government. They're simply the best that we've figured out yet, and they're way better than the utopic organizers of society who would propose, here's how we should stratify it. We won't. We will make sure we put our fingers on the scale, our thumbs on the scale. We'll move resources from A over to B. We'll put rules in place about what you can and cannot do, and by the end, what we'll end up with is a fair, more equal society. But you know who always ends up unequal in the equal society? Those capable of putting the thumb on the scale, those in charge of enforcing the rules. And that's happened everywhere. Do you think Stalin lived like the person working crops in Ukraine? Do you think Stalin lived like the workers in the factories in Moscow? Do you think the Soviet Politburo lived like the masses? Do you think Gavin Newsom kept himself from going to the French Laundry restaurant when he told everybody else they had to stay at home? The question isn't whether or not you're capable of achieving no stratification, but how you do it. And by communism and socialism, you do it by force. Government regulation, which is also another word for violence. You do it by the accumulation of power and the monopoly of violence. In capitalism, you do it imperfectly and not always fairly by merit. Interestingly, I found this absolutely fascinating. This scrolled across my Instagram feed, and I think the data is pretty sound, but it showed self-made versus inherited wealth in various countries across the world. I thought this was really interesting. I thought, I want to see this. Like, what percentage of America is self-made versus inherited wealth? Well, America came in towards the top, if we're ranking this from top to bottom, in that we like self-made wealth. 73% of wealth in America is self-made. 27% inherited. Now, just as a aside, you can see other countries. The Netherlands is a little better than America. The United Kingdom, shockingly, actually, better than America. So only 11% is inherited in the UK versus 89% self-made. But I did wonder about all the experiments in democrat socialism. I did wonder about all the countries where the powerful do put the fingers on the scale to make sure it all comes out more equal. And by the way, if we're organizing society, isn't self-made something to be rewarded? That's like, wow, that reflects true equal opportunity. You know what I mean? You're not born on third base thinking you hit a triple. You got to get, either through steals or hits, your own way around the diamond. Well, look at the experiments in socialism. Germany, 75% inherited, 25% self-made. Spain, 74% inherited. Mexico, 73%. Belgium, Italy, 73 and 64% inherited. Sweden, always the model held up by Democrat Socialists. Sweden, 55% inherited versus, or 58% inherited versus 42% self-made. On and on. Norway, more inherited than self-made. Switzerland, more inherited than self-made. All these experiments in socialism seem to preserve the status quo of wealth and power. So it makes you wonder, once again, promises versus delivery, who gets the fruits of their labor, who wins in the ultimate stratification of society. And it won't be that redheaded young lady arguing with Patrick Bet-David. It will be the person that promises her that it will all be even. And what are the people promising her? Are they meritorious? Are they smarter? Are the utopian organizers of society better? Will you be the judge? Here's Jasmine Crockett.
Baby, because these people, they are crazy, because they always talk about how Christian they is. Yeah, I don't know how many of them on that side are getting divorced because they getting caught up sleeping with their co-workers, staffers, interns, all the things. Yeah, you ain't got to believe me. Just go Google. You'll find some of it. I'm telling you, and the wives is being messy and petty. They putting it in the divorce. I'm like, ooh, that's got to be true, because your lawyer would know that they going to lose it if they... Anyway, nevertheless...
Wait.
I don't know about you, but I don't feel real good about Jasmine Crockett being in charge of organizing society, the one setting the rules for America. Because when the rules are set by the likes of Jasmine Crockett, those who promise but don't live under their own promises end up like Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar, member of the Squad, categorically denies accusations that she is a millionaire. But apparently, according to the Free Beacon and disclosures from House oversight committees, her net worth has just reached potentially up to $30 million. I read, largely through her husband, a former political consultant, Tim Minette, she's accumulated a net worth at the end of 2024 ranging from $6 to $30 million. Her wealth is derived almost entirely from the value of Minette's ownership stake in two companies that together were worth no more than $51,000 at the end of 2023. So in 1 year, she goes from $51,000 to $6 to $30 million. The sources of this wealth are unclear, but the figures show that she and her husband's net worth skyrocketed 3,500% in just 1 year. Isn't it funny how it works when you stratify according to power? Finally, third in Quick Takes, we've talked often about the declining birth rates, not just in America, but across the world. Well, there might be a little bit of a silver lining. As it turns out, birth rates are absolutely plummeting on the left. New data shows, according to the Financial Times and the U.S. General Social Survey and World Values Survey, that birth rates among people on the left versus the right have significantly diverged. The left has seen a declining birth rate below replacement level, down to something like 1.8 kids per birth on the left, where on the right, that birth rate has held fairly solid. Maybe we're not all just headed for idiocracy. Maybe the right people are not having babies. If you got the right values and you got the right world outlook, have those children, repopulate, save America.